Oil prices are above $100 a barrel due to the war in Ukraine and more importantly due to the war in Iran. But how does a war in these countries affect oil prices so much? What exactly is oil and what do we even need oil for? I will be explaining all of that in this video. Now, an important thing to mention is that there are two main things to understand about the economics of energy. One is oil and the other is liquefied natural gas or LNG. Now, of course, there are other things like coal and renewable energy, but I will be mainly focusing on these two things. But now for this video, I will just be looking into oil. So this is just the first part of 2 or 3 videos that I will be making on energy. So let's start with the basics. What is oil and what do we need oil for? When we talk about oil, we don't mean a fatty substance like in the kitchen. We mean something called crude oil. Now, I'm going to be honest, this next part is written by ChatGPT and I will tell you when it's my authentic script again. Crude oil is a naturally occurring liquid found deep underground, formed over millions of years from the remains of ancient plants and microorganisms. Under high pressure and heat, this organic material slowly transformed into a dense, energy-rich fossil fuel. In its raw form, crude oil is not very useful. It is a complex mixture of hydrocarbons, molecules made of hydrogen and carbon, along with small amounts of sulfur, metals and other impurities. Because of this, crude oil must be first processed before it can be used. But not all crude oil is the same. One key difference is its weight. Light crude oil is thinner and flows more easily, making it easier and cheaper to refine. Heavy crude oil is thicker and more viscous, which makes it more difficult and expensive to process. Another important distinction is between sweet and sour crude oil. Sweet crude oil contains very little sulfur and is easier to refine into fuels like gasoline and diesel. Sour crude oil contains higher levels of sulfur, requiring more complex refining and producing more pollution if not properly treated. To turn crude oil into useful products, it is sent into a refinery. The refining process begins with heating the crude oil in a distillation tower. As it heats up, different components separate based on their boiling points. Lighter products like gases and gasoline rise to the top, while heavier substances like diesel and asphalt remain lower down. After this initial separation, further processing steps are used to improve quality and adjust the products to meet specific needs. The result is a wide range of fuels and materials that power modern economies. Okay, so it's my script again and now I will explain the different components of the oil and their uses. So as mentioned before, you have these big distillation tanks where crude oil is heated at the bottom to around 400 degrees Celsius. Now, since only the bottom is heated, the further up we go, the colder it gets. At such high temperatures, most of the oil vaporizes, but then different components settle at different heights based on their boiling point. I'll go through them from top to bottom. LPG is liquefied petroleum gas. It is around 5% of crude oil and it is mainly used for cooking stoves or Bunsen burners. Gasoline and naphtha make up less than half of crude oil. Gasoline is mainly used for fuel, while naphtha is used to create plastics. Kerosene is around 10% and it is used as jet fuel. Next is diesel, which is around 25% of crude oil and it is used in engines and heating. Now, 5 to 8% is heavy fuel oil, which is used as fuel for oil tankers due to its high energy density. And the last 5% is asphalt, used for roads. So, we use crude oil for almost everything in our modern society, and that's why there is so much demand for it, even though renewable energies are rising. Oil, unlike liquefied natural gas, is not just about energy and fuel. Now, here are some quick facts about the biggest oil exporters, importers, and who has the most oil reserves. 7 countries share between 70 to 75% of the world oil reserves. And these are Venezuela with 17%, Saudi Arabia with 15%, Iran with 12%, Canada with 9%, Iraq with 8%, the UAE with 6%, and Kuwait also with 6%. The 5 biggest oil exporters are Saudi Arabia with 6 million barrels a day, followed by Russia, the United States, and Canada with around 4 million barrels a day each, and then the UAE with less than 3 million barrels per day. It is clear that this list doesn't match the previous list with the most oil reserves. This is because crude oil needs to be extracted, refined, processed, stored and shipped, all of which needs a lot of infrastructure. That's how a country like Norway, with less than 1% of all oil reserves, can produce more oil than Venezuela and Iran. The biggest oil importers are China with 11 million barrels a day, the US with 6 million barrels a day, India with 5 million barrels a day, and South Korea and Japan with 2.5 million barrels per day each. So now we have a small overview about the global situation. But how does the oil get from Russia to Europe or from Saudi Arabia to China? One option that is used are inland oil pipelines. As the name suggests, those are pipes stretching thousands of kilometers where oil flows from one country to another. In Europe, our most important oil pipeline network are the Druzhba pipelines, which are partially active by supplying Central European countries like Slovakia and Hungary with Russian oil. But there have been interruptions, and Ukraine could stop the pipeline in the future as it is running through the entirety of its country. Now, you might be thinking of the Nord Stream pipeline, but that is actually for natural gas and not for oil. So I will cover this in the next video. While pipelines are effective for inland transport, you can't build a pipeline from Saudi Arabia to Eastern Asia. It would be over 10,000 kilometers long and go through various countries with enormous mountains. So here the oil is transported by large ships called oil tankers. Without going too much into current news, this is the reason why oil prices are so high recently. Because half of all the oil reserves are stuck behind the Strait of Hormuz, which Iran is currently blocking. So all this oil is stuck and can get out into the world. But who determines the price of oil? Now, there isn't one definitive price of oil. The way it works is that there are two main prices which determine the price of an oil barrel. An oil barrel is around 158 liters. There is the West Texas Intermediate, or WTI, used in the US, which is the benchmark for oil prices from the United States. And then there is Brent, used in Europe and other parts of the world. This is the benchmark for oil prices from the Northern Sea. This is why these two can vary a lot, due to differences in the oil itself and infrastructure, but also due to geopolitics. As of writing the script at 1 AM on Sunday, the WTI price is at $98 per barrel, while the Brent price is at $112 per barrel. So the WTI is how much a barrel from Western Texas would cost, and the Brent is how much a barrel from the Northern Sea would cost. Well, yes and no. If you want a detailed explanation, I can recommend this video by Shaz Explains, link in the description. But to summarize this complicated thing, there's a lot more to oil price than supply, demand and geopolitics. The oil price is also in the hands of banks and trading companies who make predictions about the oil market. When the US and Israel attacked Iran, the oil prices rose immediately because the traders anticipated an increase in prices, while in reality it would have taken a few days until it would have actually risen. And then there's also the Organization for the Petroleum Exporting Countries, called OPEC, which is an organization between 13 countries that together have around 80% of the world's oil reserve. They determine the supply, but the issue is that certain countries lie or aren't completely honest about their production for their own benefit, resulting in fluctuations of the oil price. It is a really complicated topic, so check out the video if you want to know more. So, understanding oil is just a tiny but crucial part of understanding geopolitics and the economy. Because if oil prices continue to rise, then this will cause inflation as production costs go up. This is because we need oil for everything. And so this could cause a chain reaction of every other price going up, and some even speculate that this might cause a global recession. It is a really complex and interesting topic, and necessary to understand politics. That is why I make these videos, not just to educate myself, but to also educate you on politics. And since there really isn't much going on at the moment besides the energy crisis in Europe and the different wars in Russia and Iran, my next videos will be dedicated to better understanding this topic. So let me know what you think about this in the comments. If you want to hear more about immigration or other far-right issues, then check out Slovakia First. Most videos are available with English subtitles, and I'm working on making all videos available with English subtitles. I'm Slovak Royper, and I'll see you next week.